And I think I'll be interested in your opinion on how much joined up thinking there is you've seen going on within organizations when it comes to the use of outcome based, deliverables based,
Hmm.
workforce
Hmm.
delivery. Because I think in a lot of cases, at a very simple level, people just think that getting stuff done under an outcome is expensive.
Hmm.
What
Okay.
what what's your view on because so creating a requirement that delivers an outcome is more complicated than a job spec, and it
Hmm. Hmm.
requires the buying manager
Right.
within an organization to have a clear to be able to make a clear definition of what they need to do
Yes.
and why within their part of that organization, and they need to understand really how that's going to contribute to the overall strategy of the whole organization. So in a
Yeah.
super organized scenario, everyone should be able to do that, but in a lot of organizations I think people struggle. um, but do you think that some organizations just automatically think, well, if we outsource that, it's going to be more expensive? And do you think that's true in reality?
Well, I think I think you were kind of hitting the nail on the head. I think looking at outcome-based contracts, I think that's something that is generally viewed as desirable, because it promotes more certainty, and also kind of defines the cost, and presumably ties it to deliverables. But I think what you said about in effect the cost of the process of doing that is high. And I think you're absolutely right. Having to create an SOW for a hiring manager or business manager, that's definitely a problem. And how the whole, also how it should relate to a particular contract, or do you need to go out and get a new supplier? I think that is that is very burdensome, and probably a cost barrier in effect, and a barrier to getting that done. So I would definitely agree with that,
Yeah, so it kind of
which
it
is
can,
important.
yeah, and it can create a barrier or a perceived barrier to moving something from one workforce delivery model to another. So, say, for example, saying we're not going to get that done with contractors or permanent hires, we're going to outsource that, could be seen as a barrier where, it's just quite simply the people within the organization are sitting there thinking, well, how the hell are we going to define that? We just need a
Right,
load of developers to sit there and crank away on it. Whereas
right,
actually, in the grand scheme of things, if they could define it, it might be a more efficient way of doing it, but it doesn't suit every task. So I think
right.
there's a level of maturity, that where within organizations where they'll get to the point where it's much easier to decide whether it should be done this way or that way. And I think
Mhm.
there's a big opportunity for the workforce solutions providers to help with that. Um, and it is more difficult. There is a level of complexity to writing a good requirement or statement, scope of work, whatever it might be. Having said that, there's a whole massive amount of this that's already happening,
Yeah,
and actually there's an opportunity to address the stuff that's already being done, but either not being done very well or just not really being tracked.
right.
So there's I always feel with services procurement that whatever the issues around it, there's so much that needs sorting out that it's such a worthwhile problem to solve. Because even if, as you said, with the workforce solutions providers, instead of boiling the ocean, if they take a specific part of it or an entry point that maybe very naturally sits alongside and complements what they're doing on the contingent workforce side,
Hmm.
there's a
Hmm.
giant problem to be solved just in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's my view entirely. Right. And and maybe it starts with and I mean, everyone has been talking about multi-channel sourcing and so forth, and some providers have been attempting to enable that. But maybe it starts with the killer app to create SOWs for a certain category of services. So um, managers, business managers that are looking to get something done, and they would typically log into their VMS in the traditional world, right? They're able to have options, and one of those options is to pursue a service, and and being able to the killer app would be really helping and enabling the creation of that SOW to start with. And so I know, clearly solutions are out there that are working on that. And at the same time, even that I think is kind of a complex thing, because it's not just the creation of an SOW in isolation. It's the creation of an SOW in the context of contracting and legal contracting. And so I think that's kind of a missing link here in the solutions, tying that more so into the contracting process and the overall supplier management process.